My name is Elmira Lewis. The purpose of my speech is to give basic knowledge on the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse gas emissions discharged from controlled plants are one of the biggest supporters of rising temperatures. More attention is needed to get cleaner energy to impede the upward slope of global temperatures. Greenhouse gas emissions discharged from manufacturing companies are one of the biggest supporters of rising temperatures. A greenhouse gas, known as GHG, is any gas in the air that assimilates and produces radiation in the warm ultraviolet range. These are the crucial reasons for the greenhouse impact, which brings about expanded temperatures on the earth. The biggest users of the greenhouse gas emissions is people. In the United States, it is from consuming petroleum products for power, warmth, and transportation. The greenhouse gas emission substance is carbon dioxide, known as CO2, and all of CO2 originates from petroleum products and land utilized change. The other two is methane, which is CH4, and nitrous oxide, which is N2O, which generally originate from farming and waste. They are noteworthy GHGs and should not be reduced. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, known as EPA, gives us the primary sources of greenhouse gases emissions in the United States as of 2015. Electricity production is at 29%. Electricity production generates the largest share of greenhouse gas emissions. Approximately 67% of our electricity comes from burning fossil fuels, mostly coal and natural gas. Transportation is at 27%. Greenhouse gas emissions from transportation primarily comes from burning fossil fuel for cars, trucks, ships, trains, and planes. Over 90% of the fuel used for transportation is petroleum-based, which includes gasoline and diesel. Industry is at 21%. Greenhouse gas emissions from industry primarily come from burning fossil fuels for energy, as well as greenhouse gas emissions from certain chemical reactions necessary to produce goods for raw materials. Commercial and residential is at 12%. Greenhouse gas emissions from businesses and homes arise primarily from fossil fuels burned for heat, the use of certain products that contain greenhouse gases, and the handling of waste. Agriculture is at 9%. Greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture comes from livestock such as cow, agricultural soils, and rice production. Land use and forestry offset at 11.8%. Land areas can act as a sink, absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere, or as a source of greenhouse gas emissions. In the United States since 1990, managed forests and other lands have absorbed more CO2 from the atmosphere. With this information, I think about when I was a child. I was misinformed about what was happening to our earth. I began paying attention to what was occurring around the world. Glaciers are melting, the sea level is rising, and yes, the earth was getting warmer. As I read the information from NASA Global Climate Change, the planet's average surface temperature had risen about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Since the late 19th century, a change driven largely by increased carbon dioxide and other human-made emissions into the atmosphere. The ocean had absorbed much of the increased heat, with the top 700 meters about 2,300 feet. Of the ocean showing warming of 0.302 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969. Glaciers are retreating almost everywhere around the world, including the Alps, the Himalayas, Andes, Rockies, Alaska, and Africa. Next, I will be showing a video by Merran Callaghan, published in 8/25/2015. It ain't start over, did it? Oh, I messed up by saying something.
Do you know what global warming is? No? That's okay. To understand global warming, you first need to understand the greenhouse effect. Let's talk about greenhouse gases. There are lots of gases that make up the Earth's atmosphere. Some of these gases are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These three gases are called greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases are good if they are in the right quantity. They form a layer around the Earth which acts like sort of a light blanket. When the sun's rays are shined onto the Earth, some of these rays are absorbed by the Earth. However, most of these rays are reflected back into the atmosphere. When these rays hit the upper atmosphere, the greenhouse gases traps most of the heat from these rays. Some of them, though, still pass through and go back into space. The rays which are caught by the greenhouse gases spread through the atmosphere in every direction around the Earth. This, of course, keeps our Earth nice and warm.
Go back too far, you can't see it.
If the sun's rays and heat is not trapped by the greenhouse gases, Earth would not be kept warm. In fact, it would cause our Earth to be much cooler, on average, -18 degrees Celsius. Can you think of some of the consequences to Earth being that cold? Well, it would actually make Earth uninhabitable, which means humans, plants, and animals would not be able to survive. So, greenhouse gases are good. They trap the heat from the sun to keep the Earth warm. The process of trapping the sun and its heat is called the greenhouse effect. However, humans are affecting the greenhouse effect in negative ways. We are producing far too much greenhouse gases. Remember when I said greenhouse gases are good, but only in the right quantity?
He's switching around.
Well, we have factories, cars, trucks, homes, shopping centres, businesses and schools, just to name a few, which all require energy in order to be powered. All of the smoke generated from powering energy has a lot of methane and carbon dioxide, which is drastically increasing the amount of greenhouse gases. Furthermore, trees and plants breathe in carbon dioxide, reducing this from our atmosphere and keeping a balance of greenhouse gases. However, humans are cutting down more and more trees. We need space for expanding cities, so many trees, bushlands, and rainforests are being cleared. So, there are less plants to absorb carbon dioxide, but an increasing population with increasing energy consumption, more cars and more factories creating these gases. As these gases increase in the atmosphere, they create a much thicker layer. As the sun shines its rays and gets reflected back by Earth, they reach this very thick layer and they cannot escape. Before, some of the rays would go back into space, whereas now the greenhouse gases are trapping more and more rays. Temperatures are increasing worldwide. Earth is getting warmer and warmer. We call this global warming. Have you heard of global warming? You, like all of us, are responsible for global warming.
Created using Harpoon.
Now, I know a lot of us in the audience is really not aware about greenhouse effect and global warming. That's why I showed such a primitive video so we can get the basic idea. I did throw out a lot of ideas out there to, excuse me, to get my point of view about global warming. It is important and it's serious. There are things that we can do to prevent the earth from warming up. One thing is to limit the plywood plants pollution. The next thing would be to expand the carbon market worldwide, unleash a clean energy in the U.S., and end fossil fuel subsidies. And we also can go back to the basic with recycle, reuse. In conclusion, our earth is getting warmer. We must, as a society, save our planet from the destruction. Greenhouse emission has contributed to the earth in more temperature climate. Our glaciers are melting and the sea level is rising. As in a society, we can improve the earth. We can improve the earth.